Event 5, the Ranch Loop is underway, approximately a 3-mile loop through the hills and over the train at the ranch in Aromas, California. This will feature some of the same pathways, I guess, if you will, from 2016 and from the last time that they did this in 2009 and also 2007. But there are some new pathways here as well that Dave Castro was talking about.
There's a lot of unknown, but as I say to any athlete approaching on an unknown distance 5 to 6K run, is always start as fast as you can for the first quarter mile. I'm just kidding. Pace your way
it's a
through
bold
this.
strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Start steady because, again, they don't know exactly how far they're going. They don't know the turns, the elevation changes. There are 5 or 6 different type of apexes throughout the course of this trail, let alone the things that are in the way. So starting steady and kind of letting the course come to you for at least the first 2 or 3 minutes. We know this is going to take some time. It's not going to be won in the first 150 meters of the race. So let the course come to you. Stay with the pack unless the pack's making horrible decisions, and then run your own race at least to start.
Early on, it's Justin Medeiros and Matt Fraser who look like they're leading the way here. Let's bring in the third member of our broadcast booth here, and that is Bill Grundler.
Well, hello, guys.
How you doing, man?
Fantastic.
Good to have you here.
Fantastic.
Matt Fraser and Toomey now out front. Toomey leads the women, Fraser for the men. You're a guy that's done a lot of this kind of stuff. Mentally, when you're out here, just running a trail, there's no crowd, there's no music, you don't have any headphones. It's just you and your thoughts all by yourself. What's that like?
It can be a really liberating feeling. It can be a very detrimental feeling depending on how you're used to listening to that voice that's in your head. Now we see Matt Fraser out in the front. This is where he's used to being. And I think all of the athletes, same thing with Tia Toomey, all of the athletes beneath them on the leaderboard are all feeling, okay, those guys are supposed to win. So what I'm really interested to see in this race, we know there's going to be some distance on it, but who is going to push them? Who's going to try to chase them down? Is there going to be a little bit of cat and mousing that happens? That's really what I want to see. Who's got that grit?
Now, the Ranch Loop is brought to you by the U.S. Army. Chase, what are your keys for this one?
Well, when an unknown distance event, you have to rely on your fitness. But when you see a trail run like this, it gets outside of those fitness boundaries. And I'm not just talking about inside the walls of your gym. Outside is that there's an element that can't be tested with barbells, jump ropes, or rowers. This is grit. What type of grit are you going to have in this unknown area? Because they're all going to hit that point to where they have to rely on something beyond the walls of their fitness. Then we talk about the cat and mouse game. You're playing with the field that is surrounding you, and they should be next to you. So if you're a great runner, sometimes it pays to either, play. We talked about this yesterday, Bill. It's that cat and mouse game. Maybe I'll run a little faster here and suck everybody in. Or maybe I'll just hang back and chill if I can notice other people are getting tired and then save something for what the end may be.
And it'll be really interesting to see someone young, a young rookie like Justin Medeiros. Will he go out and try to push that? And is Matt Fraser going to try to hold on to it? Or is Matt going to try to lead them out just to see if he can smoke those guys, smoke their jets a little bit so that they get crushed towards the end part of this race?
Now, Brooke Wells and Kerry Pierce bringing up the rear there of that pack of 10 athletes. Again, the men and the women going at the same time. They're not competing against each other. They are scored separately. This is the CrossFit Games. There is a twist awaiting the athletes in this event. That is all we can say about this. You at home will find out about it at the same time that the athletes do. So just keep that in mind as we go through this run.
Will you look how fast and how pinwheely they're already coming down this slope? These guys are already kind of letting the wheels go. Arms are swinging, legs are swinging, almost cartoon-like as they go down. This is the very beginning. This is 4 minutes into the race, you guys.
Yeah.
They said how long the race was. They said it was about a 3-ish mile sort of race. We're 5 minutes in and we're already throwing pinwheels.
It's so cool to see these angles of really getting a better idea of the treacherous of the trail, but as well as the elevation changes, because it's really hard to see how hard it is. And look how delicate they have to be on their way. Katchen almost went down. Well, announcer's curse again. Sorry, Brooke Wells. But it's really good to see how challenging this is going to be. And Sean, exactly to what you said, this is the CrossFit Games, as Dave affectionately always says, and there is something waiting in the wings. So if you guys are watching, you don't need to go anywhere. And if your friends aren't watching, start texting some people, because this is going to be a brutal, brutal test when it's all said and done.
We talked a lot about the elevation. This is the 55% grade that Matt Fraser is on. And remember, the last time we were at the ranch was 2016. Matt Fraser won this event. It was the only event he won that year en route to winning the CrossFit Games.
The best way to explain it is, one, look at athletes crawling on their hands and feet. Think about a parking garage. The grade, if you were to run up the middle, it's steeper than that would be. That's the type of grade these athletes are working with on this hill.
Yeah, the shot really doesn't do it justice. If you see an athlete is strong and as capable as these athletes are, and they are walking with their hands on their knees, or they are hands on the ground crawling, you can't just say, oh, they're going down and taking it easy. These guys are literally crawling up a ladder as they're moving up that slope.
Matt Fraser is way out in front as he is pushing the pace for the men. That's Sam Quant and Jeff Adler. Behind them is Noah Olson. So a lot of heavy breathing already, 6 minutes in. And here comes Tia Toomey.
And then again, the other thing we have to take into consideration, not just the slopes up and down, not just the heavy breathing that you're all going to have anyway, but now you're sucking in that dust. I mean, I've worked on fire crews for a lot of years, and that's smoke and dust, and so I know what that feels like when you're breathing it in. If these athletes haven't had that opportunity to breathe heavy with not just the purest of air coming into your lungs that you have in your gym, then that's also going to affect you. So this goes into what you're saying, Chase, about the grit. Can you deal with elements that are out of your control and still be able to maneuver around that and still perform?
Here comes Haley Adams working her way up that 55% grade. It's like she's trying to chase down Carrie Pierce. In the opening stages of this approximately 3-mile loop. 7 minutes in. This is basically what they're seeing as they navigate this portion of the course. There are going to be a couple of blind spots here, and we have spotters on the course, so we'll be able to keep you updated with what's going on. We may not be able to see the athletes, but it gives you an idea. And you talked about the incline, the dust, but there's a lot of unsure footing out there as well. This is not, level ground.
That is that's about as raw as you could get it if you just dropped someone off in the middle of a hillside somewhere and said, find your way home. It's almost that raw. It's a slight trail, barely.
I think some of the things that are overlooked is we talk about footing, steepness of the incline, treacherousness of the decline, but look at the slope on the trail itself, is that you're not running on a flat, level surface. So if you guys have ever done a trail run, and one side is getting pounded for the first half of this because you have that slope. So that is one of those things that's often overlooked, even when you do a normal trail run, if it's somewhat flat when you run on, but that little slope on the trail itself makes a massive difference.
Well, and same thing, look what's on that trail. You have a bunch of leaves, a bunch of brush, a bunch of other dirt, so it's not a nice, hard, flat surface either. So to your point, Chase, it's not just the angle, but it's what's on that angle as you're running it.
Well, Chandler Smith is on the demo team, and he went through this event yesterday, and he is with Nikki Brazier.
Chandler, you had a chance to experience this firsthand. I mean, first, just tell us a little bit about like the brush and the leaves and the rock. The terrain out here, it does not look forgiving.
Yeah, it definitely makes it to where you're having to spend a lot more mental energy than what you'd normally spend on a run, because if you aren't calculated with your steps and you're not thinking 1 or 2 steps ahead, then you might take a tumble down the hill. I won't say if anybody did that when we were doing the run, but someone may have, and they may have gotten scratched up, and they were like, I'm going to learn from this lesson and be a little bit more calculated, because you have a bunch of leaves, you've got some really dusty, dirty parts, you got some muddy parts, and they didn't learn their lesson. The person was me, unfortunately. So hopefully none of these athletes are in the same place. But yeah, it's definitely a challenging course.
When you haven't had a chance to practice, and all of those things are sort of at play, you do fall, you do, get muddy, you do see leaves and rocks and tumble. I mean, there's only so much you can do to prepare your fitness for the real world and real type of terrain. How do you try to prepare?
I think when the physical, when there exists physical unknowns, it's about having confidence and knowns within your mental preparation. So just knowing that no matter what the situation is, if you lose a shoe, if your shoelace comes undone, being prepared for that type of stuff is what's going to give you the advantage here, because this is as unknown and unknowable as it gets for these athletes, right? There's just a lot of stuff that you wouldn't normally see on a run course if you're just running on an asphalt out and back type deal. And if your mental game's tight, then you're going to be able to do well.
Yeah, as difficult as it seems, I think it still feels pretty special to be here at the ranch, to be where it all started, to be sort of at the mecca of CrossFit, the home of CrossFit. Do you get those vibes here as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This has been super cool for me to even be out here with the demo team helping out, because I grew up watching the old school games. I had the Every Second Counts DVD.
Sure.
I've seen everything go on for the I think the 5 times that they've visited out here, and being a part of that and like being a part of the history in some way is a super cool opportunity. And these hills out here have been like the proving grounds for multiple generations of CrossFit athletes, and having the opportunity to kind of share the same stage that some of the people you grew up watching on is really special. So hopefully in between deep sucking breaths, these athletes are able to appreciate that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your insight, Chandler.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Big thanks to Chandler Smith for taking the time to do that. We saw the men's leader, Matt Fraser. He's ahead of Justin Medeiros. And now Tia Toomey is your women's leader. And she has passed Sam Quant, who is in 5th place for the men. Haley Adams is behind him. And Carrie Pierce is in 3rd place for the women.
So get an idea of where these athletes are at as we're looking at the map here. You saw that hand over hand crawling up the hill. Well, they had a slight downhill for maybe a quarter mile. At that point where you see it, look up there, that is a 800 to 1,000 meter straight uphill climb to what we heard is basically a false summit. So they're going to get to the top there, think they've made it, and it just goes a little bit further.
Which is, I think, really amazing. That's the game of, especially with trail running, is you think you're going to push to the top, and then you have that switch of, oh crap, I'm not done yet. I have to keep on going. How many of those athletes are they able to handle that? How does that affect them, especially when you have a 1,000-foot climb like this?
Matt Fraser working his way to the first summit on this climb. And there's a look at the elevation and the grade information for this trail run. 770 feet, the highest elevation. The lowest is 230, and then that 55% is the steepest grade.
And that is a legit grade when you're talking about elevation, the distance at which they have to go, and the angle at which they're going at. I mean, that is no joke what they're having to do on this trail.
Tia Toomey making her way up. She still leads for the women. Haley Adams was in 2nd, followed by Carrie Pierce. And Adams has gotten closer to Tia Toomey on this portion of the screen. She's in the bottom left of your screen. Catherine David's daughter, you can see her in the background now. She's starting to make up some ground. But for the men, it's Fraser and then Justin Medeiros. And then Jeff Adler was in 3rd, Noah Olson, and then Sam Quant.
I was really curious to see what Haley was going to do on this event. We know that the endurance element is her forte. So how is she able to push? Is she able to push Tia, or is she just going to go be like a, hey, come everybody and watch me work? That's what I was really waiting to see. The other thing was to see how Matt was going to work and how the other guys would follow him. So we saw that Matt had his hands on his knees as he was moving. Justin Medeiros was doing the same thing. So I want to know if he, as the young rookie, is watching Matt and just trying to shadow him a little bit. Follow the movements that he does. Follow the way he's moving up. Not trying to pass him, but just trying to match him.
Justin Medeiros trying to pick up the pace there a little bit. Now going back to hands on the knees, helping himself.
I'm coming. Never mind.
Took a look back over his shoulder to see where his fellow competitors were. And he has a pretty solid hold on 2nd place in this event right now. Medeiros in 4th place overall coming into this event, but just 5 points back of Jeffrey Adler for 3rd, 20 points back of Sam Quant for 2nd.
And you see some of the volunteers out there, they're just pointing in one direction. It's the scarecrow from Wizard of Oz. They're not telling you how far to go, how much longer there is to be. They're just like, just go that way. There's someone over there somewhere that will tell you where to go next.
Noah Olson and Jeff Adler. So Olson has now moved himself into 3rd ahead of Adler. Adler sits in 4th. Sam Quant still in 5th. Quant is in the middle of your screen now. Tia Toomey leads for the women, followed by Haley Adams, and Quant is there now. Matt Fraser barreling down the other side of that hill.
And this is when you look at it, it's like, oh, they're going downhill, thank goodness. For me personally, I would rather, even though it's tougher, go uphill than fly downhill. It's rough on the knees, ankles. The risk of injury is far greater. And I'm talking about if you're just running downhill a nice paved hill. With what this is, like, athletes need to be very, very cautious on the downhills.
Now Justin Medeiros is making his way down as you saw Haley Adams catching up with Tia Toomey. The two of them about dead even for the lead for the women. And Matt Fraser trying to put some more distance between himself and Justin Medeiros. Now remember, there is a twist to this event. The athletes
Yeah, it's like every
will
show
find out about that, and you will find out about it when they do. So just keep that in mind as these 10 athletes make their way through event number 5 here of stage 2 of the 2020 Reebok CrossFit Games, the final event of day 1, about a 3-mile loop at the ranch in Aromas.
Looked like Medeiros is doing his best Josh Everett impression from 2008.
Look up the video, kids.
So I've climbed that twice today. Stupid fucking.
So now Medeiros has reached another decline, but Matt Fraser is still way out in front, past the 16-minute mark. So those two have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. As Noah Olson, when we last saw him, he was in third, followed by Jeff Adler and then Sam Quant. And it was neck and neck for the women for first place between Tia Toomey and Haley Adams. There's Brooke Wells and Carrie Pierce. They're just getting to the top of that major incline. Olson and Adler. Olson leads Adler by, it looks like about 10 feet maybe. So Adler able to make up ground as he was in third place for the beginning portion of this run, and then Olson was able to overtake him, but the two of them basically even at this point. Now here come the women.
And again, you got to be very careful on the descent. You see Haley Adams just behind Tia Toomey. I think one thing people forget about Haley Adams,
now Haley Adams taking a spill there.
You hear gymnasts a lot, but she had some cross-country background in high school, so this isn't unfamiliar territory for Haley.
Sam Quant is in 5th place for the men. He's behind Haley Adams in the middle there, no shirt. And then it's Katrin Davisader and Carrie Pierce.
Oh,
Brooke
my
Wells.
Goodness.
I think I misidentified her earlier. It was Katrin Davisader. Brooke Wells now, who went the wrong way, is now back in 5th. That's a huge misstep for Brooke Wells. 4th place overall for Wells, 205 total points, but only 15 back of Pierce and Adams. The two of them tied for 2nd. Again, you make that up in one event.
Exactly. When you look at the point scale, it's 100, 75, 55, 35, 15. So after the 100 mark, it's a 20-point difference. And when Brooke's only 15 out, especially how she started the day, she was on a trajectory of a 2nd and 1st here at the Sports Center.
Had to stop there for a second to sort of gather herself.
Well, that's that mental part that we talk about. With those things that pop up, are you able to come back? And that was tough.
And now Justin Medeiros has overtaken Matt Fraser. So Medeiros out front, but not by much.
They have one more ascent coming up before they have a downhill portion back to the start.
This is the thing I love about Justin. It's that wrestler mentality. He wants to go head to head. He wants to throw punches. It's not a matter of, obviously we all want to win, but he's not afraid to go after it with Matt, and that's what I love. We need people like that to really try to take their shots at him. You want to knock the guy off the top.
Right now, Medeiros is in front. And think back to 2016 and the trail run there. Matt Fraser, I think the only time he was ever looking at someone's back was at the beginning. And now unfamiliar territory for Fraser. He's going to swing out wide.
And this is that last ascent. So we have about half a mile to maybe 1,000 meters before we get back to that starting point. But this will be their last climb. Nice little downhill portion, but this will be the one that, again, we know that it's the last climb for them. They don't know how many other ascents that they may have along the trail.
And look how hard they're pushing each other. I really like the fact that they're really racing. Look at the distance they have between the rest of the field. I think that's real important they are battling right now. And I don't think any of the other people on the rest of the course, like, I feel like they're just kind of hanging on. Even Tia's out in front, even though Haley's right behind her, but it just seems like they're kind of moving through this where these two guys are going head to head.
Medeiros and Fraser right next to each other. They are way out in front of everybody else.
Now here's what's important for Medeiros, is this is the last event of the day. He's 20 points out of second. Everybody's a light year away from first place with Matt Fraser, but Samuel Quant is sitting in second overall with 200 points. Adler behind him at 185, and then Medeiros is tied with Olsen at 180. The men's race is separated by 20 points from second to fifth. If Medeiros can stay where he's at, he's going to jump all the way up to second place from these other athletes. So he doesn't have to win this to get into that top second position on the other athletes.
And he just looks good. I love the fact that he's getting after it. And even with Matt's playing it smart. I love that they're just kind of hanging out on each other, just sort of driving each other. And this is, with all the hype that Justin has, we keep hearing this is kind of like how Matt was when he was coming in, the same kind of hype. And here they are. You got the old and the new just going head to head, toe to toe.
So far, a two-person battle for the lead for the men. But Chase, you mentioned how close it is on the men's side. The races behind them really matter as well, because just 20 points separating second from fifth. I mean, that's a matter of one place in the event standings. So this leaderboard could look a lot different after this event.
I mean, we've seen that happen all day with these point swings with only 5 athletes. That's been an exciting element for this competition.
Medeiros just in front of Matt Fraser as the two of them working their way up another incline.
And this final ascent has 2 different inclines. It's going to go up, level out for about 100 meters, and then go up one more time before they'll be able to make it back down the backside of this hill.
And again, we know the course layout. They don't. They know approximately how long it is, but they just have people pointing them in a direction. They don't know what's coming up next. So
it's really easy to tell them, but as far as, for us, like, yeah, this is totally what's happening next. What was the problem? Why'd you go so fast?
I almost wish I couldn't hear the helicopter, because I would love to hear if there was a little chatter going on between these guys. There was stuff like that back in Pendleton where some of the athletes were talking to each other as we were really working, and they're not going super fast. They're just trying to push their way up. So is there camaraderie? Is there a little kind of head game work? I wonder what's happening over there.
Fraser and Medeiros way out in front of everybody else as we get close to the 23-minute mark here of the 5th event of day number 1. And Matt Fraser has been impressive so far, as has the youngster Justin Medeiros. Tia Toomey is your leader for the women. When we last checked in with her, things looked like they had tightened up a bit, but now Toomey back out in front, ahead of Haley Adams.
But as you said, we saw Haley have that little spill on that big downhill on the midpoint of this event.
And I thought maybe she had a little hitch in her step as she was coming down,
looked like
possibly an angle or something, but right here on her run that she's opening up, looks okay. So good to see that there wasn't an issue there, because we want to see these guys going head to head. We want to see her be able to perform to her level.
So both the men's side and the women's side have similar scenarios playing out. You have the defending champion and then the youngest competitor in the field on their heels. 3rd and 4th place for the men are in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Jeff Adler sits in 3rd. Noah Olsen is in 4th. The two of them have been trading that spot throughout this run.
And if everything finished the way it is now on the men's side, you'd still have Fraser in 1, but Medeiros would jump all the way up to 2nd place.
Now Haley Adams pulling even with Tia Toomey. Jeff Adler trying to hold off Noah Olsen. For 3rd place. And now Adams, for the first time, leads Tia Toomey.
Well, here's what's big for Adams. She's 2nd overall, but she is tied in points with Pierce and only 15 ahead of Wells. But, I mean, Wells is literally fallen off the map, so to speak, on the women's side. But it's not just the points for today, but when you give a young hungry athlete like this a shot of adrenaline with going toe-to-toe with the best CrossFitter in the sport, what is that going to set you up for the next day and the day after that?
Medeiros and Fraser now back to running as they hit a decline, and Fraser looked like he's trying to push the pace a little bit on Medeiros.
Now this is where it gets a little sketchy because this backside on the hill is basically all dust and sand. This is a very, not to say a slippery slope, but it literally is a slippery slope.
Now Fraser has passed Medeiros. Now remember, there is a twist to this event. The athletes don't know about it, and they're going to find out at the same time you will at home. So Fraser making the turn, Medeiros making the turn, and now a sprint to the finish.
Turn around, run in reverse. This entire course backwards. Go this way. I'm serious. I'm not joking. You're going to start losing. Run the whole course in reverse. Keep moving. I'm dead serious. Run the entire course backwards now.
And there you have it. They're not done. They just reached the halfway point.
Matt didn't believe him at all.
He did not.
He didn't believe Dave at all. Of course, I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't. How would you think that?
I would say, haha, that's funny. Give me my water, please.
Exactly. But what I liked was Medeiros didn't even, he just was like, okay, and just went. And that's one of the things about youth, I think, is you can just be coached and directed and be like, go here, use your awesome fitness and go that way. It's like, oh, all right.
Well, not just youth, but inexperience with his interactions with Dave Castro, because all Dave really does with a lot of these athletes is screw with him on a constant basis.
Totally.
So that's probably what Matt was thinking. And Medeiros is like, yes, sir. You know, I've never met you before.
Right, totally. Now, this is what's interesting.
Now,
What's
Jeff
going to
Adler,
happen here?
Yesterday, when the athletes were testing this, Danielle Brandon, Saxon Panchik, and Chandler Smith were running this. Smith and Panchik got in first. Danielle Brandon saw them running back up the hill and said she thought they were coming to cheer her on, and then found out that she had to go back and do it again.
Yeah, well, the best part is they didn't tell her.
They didn't.
Right? they didn't like, hey, let me do you a favor.
Well, and I don't think they did right there, too, either. We saw Jeff ask. He's like, hey, are you guys done? He's looking back to see what's happening. Matt and Justin's head didn't even move.
I'd say yes. That'd just be me as a competitor. Yeah, we're done.
Turn around and run the course in reverse. Turn around and run in reverse.
Adler seems to be relatively unfazed. And he's going to make his way back up, and now here comes Noah Olson. Tia Toomey and Haley Adams, they're going to figure out something's going on.
So now the gamesmanship. Wow, they didn't even look. Didn't even look. So here's the thing. The people that really got the slap in the face is going to be Justin and Matt, because they were the first shot on that. They were so far ahead of the rest of the field. So even though everyone else is still getting that oh crap feeling, it's like they almost had the moment to go, oh crap, something's up. So they had that chance to kind of adjust. Pays to be a winner. You get to be out in the front. You are doing your thing. You're doing your thing. You're getting after it. But they also were able to handle that. And that's what the whole test is.
Toomey not even slowing down, making the turn and heading right back up. When we watched the demo team do this yesterday, Saxon Panchik knew what was coming. And he, I don't want to say sandbagged the event, but you could tell he was not going 100% on the first half.
Correctly.
And when you look at his splits, they were basically about even. Chandler Smith was the first demo athlete across the finish line, and when he was told to turn around, he was wrecked. His second loop was significantly longer than his first one.
Just brutal. And the hard part is that you see Fraser Medeiros selling out to win an event, only to get told you have to go back. And we talked earlier, it's like it pays to be a winner most of the time, and it still might because you are ahead of the field and you kind of got the edge. But part of that too is like if I was in third and I was just in third, I would just, okay, I'm just going to park it here. I'm not going to catch them.
Right.
I'm not going to get caught by these people, so I'm going to jog in. You actually have, it is a benefit of not being those guys because they were just crushing each other on the hill.
But a champion's going to be able to handle whatever comes with him. And I think that's what the whole twist of the test is supposed to be. Do you have the grit that when things aren't going your way and it changes, that you're able to adapt and still go? Matt is the champion of champions that we have. So that was a great test, even though he was in there, and yes, he didn't believe what he was being told, but they didn't slow down. Look at Justin Medeiros, same thing, right in the mix and went for it. So these are the best, the most fittest athletes that can handle anything. Not what's written on paper, but anything that gets tossed their way at the same time. That's what's impressive with these guys.
Sam Kwan, when Dave asked him, you figure out what's going on, he said, yeah. He just made the turn. Just took his medicine and is heading back up.
Now, a twist like this, having to be kept secret for so long is vital. But at the same time is that this was teased in the redacted episodes of the behind the scenes of the CrossFit Games. And if you guys go to YouTube and look up redacted episode number 1. And at the minute 27 mark, Dave is specifically bringing this up to the group that was there on site. And he didn't even want to, but he wanted to make sure is that he told enough people early that this isn't a gimmick. We just didn't make this up on the fly. This is the plan to test the athletes beyond the confines of fitness or grittiness, but just that there's something even beyond mental fortitude. When that switch goes off, can you turn it back on?
Catherine Davidsdottir, bottom left-hand part of your screen, has passed Tia Toomey. Haley Adams is in the lead, and Davidsdottir starting to reel her in. So this is the effect that you were talking about, Chase. Davidsdottir was pretty much where she was going to be in this event, coasted on in, and now might have something left in the tank.
Now, a weird part of her training that we've seen with Ben Bergeron, and people got some odd vibes about him. It's like they've been running hills and he's throwing sand on her in the middle of the trails or making her do burpees or giving her an extra round when it's not ready. It's like Bergeron actually does a lot of surprise things within the training. And this could be one of those things that will benefit Katrin as well as the position she was in coming in.
One of the things that a lot of coaches will do is, and this is a way more simple version of this, is as you're going through your workout, they will no rep you even if it was a good rep, and no rep you again, and no rep you again, just to see if you can mentally handle that. That's basically what happened here, is they got no rep to no rep, and now they have to come around and keep on going. Now with Katrin, we know that she can handle this, and I think now, you know, are you going to know what the end is for sure? No, but now she knows she's back in the race, and I think she's going to start eating that up.
Matt Fraser is still the leader for the men. He is, it looks like he's left Justin Medeiros pretty far behind him right now. We'll have to see when Medeiros comes over that hill. But Fraser still hanging on to first place as he makes his way back through this approximately 3-mile loop.
And I look at we talked about the elevation changes in the course itself. When I look at it going in reverse, I feel that it's a much tougher course in reverse because the back half has such steep inclines and declines. When you're doing that fresh, you got nice fresh legs, you're excited about the event, but the back end of this, the last quarter of this direction is probably the most difficult part of this entire course.
And the other thing is you know that it's coming up. That's what's bad.
So Fraser leads. Justin Medeiros is in the upper left-hand part of your screen and looks like he is closing the gap. And now Sam Kwan, who is the last man across the finish line, is making his way up the hill, and Brooke Wells is on his way down. Her way down, pardon me.
Now for Brooke Wells, this is the 15 or 0 platter that Dave is holding out, right? Because there is no cap to this. As soon as you turn around, there's no getting you. And you either finish or you quit. And is it almost worth that 15 at the end? Well, it is when you look at the leaderboard based off how close these women are. But again, it's outside the confines of anything you could have prepared for before something like this. After this, I can't wait to see what weird-ass training things coaches are going to start doing for their athletes.
Brooke Wells getting set to make the turn, as on the right-hand part of your screen, Matt Fraser leads for the men, but Justin Medeiros is putting a little bit of pressure on him. So Medeiros has cut into that lead that we saw the last time we checked on these two, but Fraser still managing to hold the youngster off. And here comes Brooke Wells, and she has to know what's going on at this point.
What do you mean, Brooke? You know what's going on?
I like that. Just, yep.
Okay.
See at the finish line.
Yep, let's see over there.
Don't go the wrong way again.
Don't go the wrong way again.
Well, and at this point, the surprise is, I guess, probably ruined for her. She had time to sort of mentally prepare herself for it, whereas you saw, Matt Fraser and Justin Medeiros kind of selling out, thinking that they were done.
I would have snagged a water, shook my feet out, put a little bit on my head.
Asked for a quick massage.
I'm like, how long has it been?
Let's go.
Okay. Can I have a flashlight, please?
So all 10 athletes now have made the turn. Brooke Wells the last one to do that. And she's working her way back up the hill as she just got done making her trip down. And Haley Adams and Katrin Davidsdottir out front. Davidsdottir is now your leader in front of Haley Adams, but Adams trying to close that gap. Tia Toomey back the last time we saw her in 3rd place now. So Davidsdottir comes in 5th place overall, 160 total points. She can make up some serious ground here as well and put herself possibly into the top 3, depending on what the rest of the competitors do. Haley Adams 2nd place overall with 220 points.
We talked about this earlier, Chase. It's the way the events are set up. It's who is the most hungry is going to have the best chance. Now, you take out the total, Katrin's only going to be able to do so much. But everything else, if she wants it, it's there for the taking. It's just a matter of how much you want to fight for it. We didn't see Katrin in the beginning of this race.
No.
She was way in the back. So the way she was, the ability for her to hang in there, not get worried about that, and be able to kind of creep up and creep up and creep up to where she's in the front and pushing the tempo, pushing the pace right now against Haley, who's a good runner. This is what she's known as. You talk to like Chris Henshaw. Chris Henshaw always talks about Haley Adams, about what she has in that capacity. So the fact that she's pushing like this is really a huge testament to what Katrin's doing. Huge.
I think for Katrin, she was probably one of the few that when this was told to her, she felt like it was a gift.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me?
The others were like,
Absolutely.
crap, okay. She's like, I have more time.
Yep.
This is something I'm accustomed to in a weird sense of the word.
And if you were with us this morning, we talked about how good Katrin Davidsdottir has gotten at pulling off comebacks, and maybe she's starting another charge here. Again, 5th place overall, has 2 fourths, a 5th, and a 2nd so far today, and looking to get a victory and move herself into contention for a spot on the podium now.
If things were to finish out the way it is now, Katrin had 160 coming in and Adams at 220. Tia is out of reach, at least at this point in time for this event. This should put her in that 3rd place position based off the standings that the other athletes are at.
You can make up as many as 85 points on someone in a single event. Well, Haley Adams is trying to make up the distance on Katrin Davidsdottir.
I mean, they still have a long way to go. And again, the hardest part is yet to come. They just went up their first uphill portion, coming to the downhill, but that the biggest ascent has yet to come. It's about that halfway point of the course.
Adams keeping Katrin Davidsdottir within reach. As we are almost at 39 minutes gone by here in the 5th and final event on day 1. We talked about the demo team running this yesterday. Chandler Smith was one of the athletes who did it, and once again he is with Nikki Brazier.
Talk about a twist, and unfortunately you experienced it firsthand on your own. I mean, just tell me a little bit about what was going through your mind the moment you realized, well, no, you're only halfway, you got to do this whole thing in reverse.
Honestly, I was just so pleased with the masterstroke of programming that Castro had come up with, a Shyamalan-esque twist. I was just appreciating the intricacies of everything going on. But in actuality, I was very upset. I had sold it out kind of to finish the first part of the run, and my fitness bank account is already a little lower than normal. So when I overdrafted. I didn't have the protection that I am used to, and it made the back end just a slog. So I know these athletes are going through it. It hits like a bad breakup or spilling a pot of chili on yourself. Like it's rough. So they're going through it right now.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, as a competitor, we talk a lot about obviously being physically fit, but also having the mental capacity to being able to take on any kind of a test. But when it's so unknown and you're in the midst of it, I mean, how do you redevelop or refine your mental fortitude to finish?
So for me personally, I just I was like, all right, I have to find a way, because at least at this point you know the distance. So it's like, how can I break this up into manageable chunks? And you really have to run your own race. Like it is a race against other people to the end. But depending on how hard you went for the beginning or for the front part of the race, you're gonna have to change your strategy. So I said I'm gonna run the flats and downhills and walk the uphills. It's a common like rucking strategy in the Army, and tried to follow that as much as I could. My body wasn't really listening, but that was my plan. And I think some of the athletes are kind of taking the same approach here. A little less aggressive than they were on the hills earlier.
Now, obviously, effort-wise, I know it was way harder on the way back than it was on the way front. But terrain-wise, I mean, was it just as difficult, uphill, downhill?
I swear, just like kind of when your parents tell you when they were going to school they had to go uphill both ways in the snow.
Of course.
That's how the hills felt. Like you remember them being 100 meters on the way over, but then on the way back, I'm like, how did this hill get 3 times as long? So because the time dilation kind of occurs on the back end, it changes your approach a little bit to where you just got to be a little gentler, because you're closer to that gas tank's already pretty close to E.
Yeah, I believe it. Well, thank you so much for your insight, Chandler.
Thanks
Great
for
job
having
doing
me.
this yesterday as well.
It wasn't a great job, but I'm glad I tried.
Big thanks to Chandler Smith for taking the time to do that. His effort is on the bottom left part of your screen, and he was hurting when we watched him go through that. Meanwhile, the battle for first place for the men has gotten a little tighter as Justin Medeiros has pulled closer to Matt Fraser. And then we saw, if you're watching the women, it looked like Haley Adams had passed Katrin Davidsdottir for the lead, but we'll have to check in with them once they get through that blind spot that is on the course. But Matt Fraser had a pretty big lead on Justin Medeiros. Medeiros has cut into that. Katrin Davidsdottir is in front of Haley Adams, but maybe not for long, as Adams has pulled even with the former 2-time champion, and now Haley Adams is in front.
If you look at the left side of your screen on the men's side, the top of that hill is about 1 mile from the turnaround, and this will be the highest point of elevation for the entire trail, getting up to 770 feet. They got about a 420-foot incline in a quarter-mile worth of space. So this hill doesn't look quite as bad from this angle, but this will be the longest uphill part they have, but the steepest and most treacherous ones are in that last quarter mile of the race.
And look at the way these guys are slugging up the hill. Their calves and legs are blown. You see that they're almost flat-footing this because they just don't have that drive anymore, going up these hills, constantly going over and over and over again. And they know that they have the downhills to contend with, so they're trying to conserve something for that, but while still trying to move. And I think it's interesting how they keep looking back. They're so far away from everyone. It's almost like kind of going to the chalk bucket right now. It's going to slow you down. That's my little break as I turn around and look to see if anybody's back there.
Well, think back to the marathon row a couple years ago and how that pack of athletes said, hey, look, you're where you are, I'm where I am. You're not going to push this, right? Let's just settle where we are. And, Matt Fraser is so out of reach right now. Now, obviously, you want to cut into his lead. Justin Medeiros, 85 points looks pretty good for him right now.
Exactly. And I think
75, pardon me.
I'd look back and like, top of the hill man wins the rest of the event. Gentleman's agreement at the top.
Now, Katrin Davidsdottir is back in front of Haley Adams as they are starting to creep up on Medeiros and Fraser.
I'll say in terms of time difference, this is you're going to catch up pretty quick until you get to the bottom of the summit and you start walking up the hill. I'll see what the time increase is on the backside.
When last we checked in with Tia Toomey, she was in third place. Remember, she was the leader at the turn for the women, and then both Adams and Davidsdottir were able to pass her. And for the men, Noah Olson, Jeff Adler, and Sam Quant are still out there as well. That looked like Noah Olson and Sam Quant. And now here come Davidsdottir and Haley Adams. Nearly 45 minutes gone now in the 5th and final event of day number 1.
It's like Haley's getting a little tight in the back. You can see her arching. I haven't seen any change at all in Catherine. She's looked solid, hands on her legs, doing the exact same thing all the way through, not changing anything up, so she's not breaking down, which is impressive.
Tia Toomey looks like she's still in 3rd place. We saw the men once again, and it was Jeff Adler who's in 3rd, followed by Noah Olson. So Sam Quant's still in 5th place, but Tia Toomey, after leading through the first half, is now in 3rd. And now Matt Fraser and Justin Medeiros have reached the top of that diabolical incline there. And the two of them start to pick up the pace.
They have a pretty long descent all the way down, about a half mile. They're right at that halfway point on the back half of this trail. So once they get to the bottom, that's when it starts to get pretty fun. They'll be about 3/4 of a mile from the finish once they get to the bottom of this hill.
And Fraser's managed to put a little distance between himself and Medeiros, as they were essentially right next to each other on the upside of that hill. Tia Toomey solidly in 3rd place right now. Toomey coming into this event with 315 points. It's 95 up on Haley Adams.
And look at the difference of the way Matt and Justin are coming down there. Now, here's the difference between 21-year-old, 30-year-old. And granted, 30 is not old, and that's speaking from my relative perspective for sure. But Matt is being very conservative about what he's doing with his body, trying to use it for the rest of the weekend, whereas Justin just doesn't, he's not worried about that. That's youth right there. He's like, let's go, man. Like, I'm going to go down as fast as I can, not I need to worry about my knees and I need to worry about my ankles and everything else. So it's really interesting to see the difference between the two athletes as they're descending.
I can see Matt Fraser's thoughts. He's like, my knees, my knees, my knees, my knees.
Well, I know my knees are saying that. His might be saying that, but mine definitely
Medeiros is like, wee.
Medeiros took a look over his shoulder to see if Olson and or Adler had crested that hill. And now he's just worried about catching up to Matt Fraser, who continues to lead. And Tia Toomey on the bottom left of your screen, she is in 3rd, and that is Carrie Pierce in 4th place. Brooke Wells in 5th place for the women right now. And Wells looking like she's going to fall down the overall leaderboard. 4th place coming in to this event, but 205 points. Just 15 back of Carrie Pierce and Haley Adams.
You know, Matt Fraser has won so many of our distance events that we've had, whether it's been, Murr style, the trail runs or whatever. He always performed so well, but was never really pushed. I love that we're looking at this long of a race where there's this much of a push all the way through.
Noah Olson has moved into 3rd place for the men as he has passed Jeff Adler, leaves Sam Quant in 5th. And Katrin Davidsdottir, that's Katrin Davidsdottir coming over, and then Haley Adams is behind her. Davidsdottir looking to pick up her first victory of the competition. 100 points would be huge for her right now. Olson and Adler down that hill that we just saw Matt Fraser and Justin Medeiros deal with. Fraser and Medeiros are on the right side of your screen, and you mentioned it, Bill. Justin Medeiros continuing to push Matt Fraser. He is not letting him out of his sight. Now Medeiros might take his turn in front. Approaching the 49-minute mark here. Noah Olson, 3rd place right now in this event. Olson tied with Medeiros at 180 points, and Jeff Adler just 5 points up on them with 185. And Sam Quant sits in 2nd place with 200, so only 20 points separating 2nd through 5th on the men's side. So wide open there, but Matt Fraser is still your overall leader at 375 points, and that is the slog that these athletes have to deal with going up that hill. And trust me, it looks terrible on TV, but when you're out there actually on that terrain, it is even worse.
And Carrie Pierce is starting to creep up behind Tia Toomey. She's second one down, Quan at the bottom. Here's what I like for Katrin Davidsdottir on the left, is that it's really hard to run away from the field when you're by yourself. But she has her own chasers in front of her. She's got Adler and Noah Olsen out there for her little carrot, even though she's trying to run away from the rest of the field.
Tia Toomey now has just gotten, it looks like, to the top of that incline. Carrie Pierce behind her, and that's Sam Quant for the men, who will be the last man to the top of that hill. Toomey is up and over. Carrie Pierce will be next. And here comes Tia Toomey getting to the summit.
This is something that's really interesting for Tia. Normally, when you have a lot larger field, you can afford to be in the middle of the pack. This could possibly, well, maybe not fifth place, but definitely a fourth place. That possibility is there, and that's a lot of points that she's giving up.
Back to back. She got fifth in the event previously.
So not only did we have the twist in this event of are you able to bounce back, but like how many times, at least in the last handful of years, has Tia had to deal with that? She hasn't had that. You know, you come in, you just know you're going to win, and then all of a sudden you're not, and that's a tough place to be.
In a packed field, 3 places, if you have 40 athletes, 18 points at worst.
Right.
Now you're talking, maybe 65.
Yeah.
Matt Fraser has moved back in front of Justin Medeiros, but the two of them are dead even here.
They're slowly approaching the steepest portion of this trail run. It's not very long. It might be 200 meters at most, but it is one of this. They have a little tiny uphill, and then right at the backside of this is when it drops down.
It seems like the two of them are just pretty content to keep the pace that the other one is setting right now. Might be setting up for a great sprint to the finish if it stays this close.
I honestly would be really nervous about wanting to finish at the end. Is there going to be another twist? Who knows?
Matt Fraser doing a really nice job of navigating his way down there, as is Justin Medeiros. The two of them going quickly, but not recklessly.
What I like about Matt is he's alternating sides of his lead foot. And I think that harkens back to his skiing days in Vermont.
Absolutely.
Now here's Tia Toomey, who is in 3rd place right now for the women. And if that holds, that would be 55 points for her.
So we said that short 200 straight down. You saw how careful they had to be, and then it shoots right back up from the bottom. It's basically a V portion of this part, and this is another 200 to 300 meters left to go.
There's that crawl. And you know what? You would think that maybe it shows like you're breaking down. I honestly think that would be just fine. Lighten your chest a little bit. Just get down on your hands, because you're going to put your hands on your legs to push anyway. Lighten your body. Spread that weight out on that climb, and just move up.
Justin Medeiros may have heard you, because that's exactly what he did.
At the top of this ridge, it's a straight shot downhill, about a quarter mile to the finish line. And it's downhill for about 250 meters, and then a pretty good 100 to 150 meters straight away to the finish line.
It's going to be incredible to see the Bambi legs that are going to be at the end of this sprint.
Fraser put in a little distance between himself and Justin Medeiros. We'll have to see how long that lasts. Again, Medeiros in 4th place overall, but it is so tight behind Matt Fraser, just 20 points separating 2nd place from 5th place. Sam Quant all by himself in 2nd place right now with 200 points, but he is dead last in this event. So he will most likely be surrendering 2nd place overall, most likely to Justin Medeiros. Noah Olson, pardon me, Matt Fraser taking a look over his shoulder to see where Medeiros is. Noah Olson in 5th place overall coming into this event, and he was in 3rd place when last we checked in with him.
I mean, when there you see the slide on the right side from Katrin and how steep that is. Look at the time in the upper left corner of your screen. They've been doing this for nearly an hour.
Yep.
An hour. And it probably feels like 3 days for them.
I think if Dave Castro tells Matt Fraser to turn around when he gets across the finish line, Fraser's probably going to punch him in the face. Fraser leads. Medeiros is in 2nd still. And Medeiros is starting to run out of time in order to catch Fraser because they are getting closer to the finish. This is probably the biggest lead that Fraser has had maybe on this return portion of the course. Now here comes Medeiros. It's about a good, unofficially maybe 10-second lead for Matt Fraser right now.
This is that downhill part. It's light sand, loose soil, but it is straight downhill. There's not a lot of rocks and odd terrain to kind of get in your way.
Katrin Davidsdottir is your leader in this event right now. She's on the right side, but she has not left Haley Adams behind her. Adams is still putting a little pressure on Davidsdottir, and now Matt Fraser really opening it up. Nearly 57 minutes gone by here. This is the final event of the day.
Wow. Look at the distance he just put between him and Medeiros. We saw how cautious he was coming down the earlier downhills. Didn't even worry about it there. Opened it up. Long strides, moving. Wow. That was pretty dang incredible.
Fraser comfortably in the lead now, and that changed quickly. Let's see how far back Justin Medeiros is, but he probably is not going to be able to make this deficit up because Fraser is getting very close to the finish. Just like in 2016, Matt Fraser is going to win the Ranch Loop. And here's a twist. Matt Fraser's really fit.
I don't know if he's going to want to talk to anybody right now. I would be so pissed.
Now here comes Medeiros looking to lock up 2nd place and move himself into 2nd place overall as he'll pick up 75 points. Katrin Davidsdottir still leads for the women, so Medeiros is in. 2nd place for him. That's his 3rd 2nd place finish of the day. Matt Fraser, meanwhile, has won 4 of the 5 events, and he finished 2nd in the CrossFit total.
Hey, how was it, big dog?
That kid's getting, that kid.
He has a bright future.
When you run a whole hour battling with Matt Fraser the entire time, like you're getting gold stars on your forehead all day long. Like, I mean, like you're getting all kinds of win and respect points from the best of the best of the best. That's pretty cool.
Now Noah Olson will be the next man across the finish line. So Olson will take 3rd place. That will earn him 55 points, and it's his 4th straight 3rd place finish.
That's big for Olson, who technically sitting in 5th place, tied with Medeiros in points. This should bump Medeiros up to 2nd, and Olson into 3rd, because Quanten, who's holding onto that 2nd place position, is last between the men.
Now Catherine Davis' daughter looking to pick up the victory for the women.
This is needed. She needs this in a big way.
Huge.
Yeah, 5th place overall coming into the event with 160 points, 45 points back of Brooke Wells for 4th, and 60 points back of Carrie Pierce.
And I really like the way she's doing it. She's opening up. She's not just looking back by her shoulder to see where everyone is. She wants to put that distance out because she rides off of this stuff. This is where, when she excels, is when she rolls on that confidence and that win.
Comes Jeff Adler. He will take 3rd. 3rd place overall coming into the event with 185 points. Sorry, 4th. After Noah Olson took 3rd. So 4th place for Adler. That's his 3rd 4th place finish on the day. And here comes the sled dog. Catherine Davis' daughter makes another comeback, and she does it in event 5. At the turn, she was way back in 3rd place. Didn't look like she had a chance to catch Tia Toomey or Haley Adams. And now the former 2-time champion is going to lock up 100 points and take the Ranch Loop.
I tell you what, it looks good doing it.
Oh man, amazing. Amazing. Wow. Look at that smile. I mean, a little thumbs up with Noah, but this, look, she could do another lap.
And I said it's one of those things, like, for the way Catherine is in training and suffering in events like this, which she loves already, that turnaround twist from Dave was a gift to her. That's how she received it, and that's how she used it on the back half of this event.
Haley Adams in 2nd place for the women. Good for 75 points for her. So she's looking to cut in a little bit to Tia Toomey's lead. Tia Toomey, the last time we checked in with her, was in 3rd place. So that means that Adams would at least pick up 20 points on Toomey. She trailed her by 95 coming in. But remember, you can make up as many as 85 points in one event. So Toomey, while she numerically has a big lead, that can be erased very quickly.
Yeah, the numbers are bigger than they actually are relative to the scoring table that we're using at this CrossFit Games. And this is huge for Haley. What more confidence can you gain after this first day of competition and what they had to do?
Haley Adams started with a 2nd place finish, and she will end the day with a 2nd place finish. And she looks to hang on to 2nd place overall after day 1. Tia Toomey in 3rd place, just looking to get across the finish line and only surrender 20 points to Haley Adams.
Now, what Catherine needs is she needs Tia to stay ahead of Carrie Pierce, who's in that 4th place position at the moment. Tia holding on to that 3rd place. If that happens, I think Catherine will jump from 5th to 3rd after this event.
Tia Toomey started by winning the first 3 events here, then took 5th in the handstand sprint, and now looking at a 3rd place finish here in the Ranch Loop. Sam Quant is the only man left on the loop. Toomey, Pierce, and Wells, the 3 women who are left. There is Sam Quant, who at best can earn 15 points.
Well, at this point, where he is, especially on this whole backside, I don't want to say that there's no reason to push it.
Well, you can say it because that's what you should do. It's like,
well,
you're
I
last.
know, but you're flirting with that. You must try clause. They don't want people to just blow it off. That's something that you have to at least watch. So
yeah.
No, I'm not. No, he doesn't need to go and crush it. Yes, he needs to finish. should sit down and drink some water right now necessarily.
My trying would be not quitting.
Right.
Well, and we have been told that if the athletes are flirting with that 0 points, they will be warned before that penalty is actually assessed.
Right. Which is a good thing because that's a really subjective rule, you know.
It's like, start running. I'm like, nah.
You run.
The Tina Toomey is getting closer to the finish line, and when you look at the 5 tests that we had today, some more awaiting us on the weekend, some of the stuff is still unknown. This is a pretty, like we said at the beginning of the day, this is a burly day.
It's a burly day, but it's a very complete day now that we've seen the tests unfold. And if you think about 2007, when there was only 3 tests, a hopper, a CrossFit total, and a trail run, it was a very elegantly complete test, and it touched all the bases when you're trying to define fitness in terms of, you know, the hopper, the different training modalities, and the 10 general physical skills. If I were to take a step back and just look at this day as if it were 2007, this would be a near complete test of fitness. We tested absolute strength with the total in 3 different lifts. We tested a bat-esque crazy trail run with a twist. We did a classic CrossFit event to start the day. We followed it with a just pure anaerobic blast test, and then a handstand walk race, longer than anyone we've ever had, by the way. So we've really hit a lot of different modalities, but in a way, if you just took the classic sense of testing fitness, if this was just the games for a day, you could sit back and say, yeah, I would be okay with the results at the end of this day if this was the fittest on earth.
The Toomey is in 1 hour, 6 minutes, 9 seconds, and she will take 3rd place.
You know, Dave was saying that this was going to be the toughest day ever. We've heard that over and over and over again. And by far, it's probably one of the most complete days by far, but the volume of what they've had to do and be put through on day 1, knowing that there's 2 more days coming up, that's what's impressive. So is it flashy and dashy right now? Not necessarily, but is the volume there and correct? Yeah. And it is brutal. What they've had to undertake is brutal.
I mean, when people saw the first 4 events, they're like, no, I don't get what Dave's talking about the hardest games ever. This changed everything.
Yes, it did.
And not just the distance. Say a 6-mile trail run. That twist changed everything.
Right.
Carrie Pierce is in 4th place. That means Brooke Wells will take 5th. And Sam Quant will take 5th for the men. And everybody just taking a dip in the ice bath right now. And you got to wonder, you know, how they're going to be able to recover from this and face whatever awaits them on the weekend.
I'd die. I'd be dead. I would sink into my ice bath, breathe in, and die.
The recovery part here would be pretty brutal. Not just even the musculature, but like toes, ankles, knees, that type of thing of what you have to deal. I mean, Chase, you played around with some handstand walking on this turf and how your hands were dealing with that.
My hands are trash.
I mean, just even that alone, having that, not knowing if you're going to need to have the palms of your hand for the rest of the weekend. You know, I mean, there's a lot of factors out there.
And think about this: the seed has now been planted about what awaits later, and when I cross the finish line, am I really done?
Yep.
Oh yeah. All faith in the rest of the events moving forward has been thrown out the window.
Dave no longer has any friends. Dave Castro has no more friends.
These are the 2 people left on the course. Sam Quant for the men and Brooke Wells on the right. And she is way back. And remember, the last time Brooke Wells was in Aromas was 2016. And she finished towards the back of the trail run and then went out and won the deadlift ladder. So was able to redeem herself there. But not the ending that she had envisioned to her first day of competition here. So she's going to have some work to do as she came into this event in 4th place overall, but she most likely is going to slide into 5th because Catherine Davidsdottir locked up 100 points, and Davidsdottir only trailed her by 45 coming into the Ranch Loop.
And she's been on both ends of the spectrum. She's got 5th, or she's got basically 1st place in the first 5 events. Bill, you're talking about recovery. The physical recovery is going to be one thing. Obviously, just the emotional toll that an event like this will take. And we're not trying to overplay it. This is a challenging, emotionally taxing event. When you think you're done, you flip the switch off. It's really hard to turn it back on. But athletes are going to wake up tomorrow with unfamiliar soreness and fatigue. That's like they're used to their quads being sore, their hands torn up, they're not being able to straighten your arms because of your biceps. But when you wake up tomorrow off the trail and it's like, my ankle bones hurt.
Yeah.
Or
I
the
don't want
backs
to put
of my
shoes
knees
on.
ache. Yeah.
Right.
So they're going to wake up with unfamiliar soreness tomorrow. So I'm curious how they're going to handle that. And now when you look at some of that morning event, the toes to bar lunge event to start the day off, that is a completely different test now than what we've seen happen today.
Look at the assault on those joints coming down those hills. I'm not even talking about going up the hills and using the muscles. I'm talking about coming down in the joints, and then now here we are hitting your knees on the ground, using your knees and hips to drive up through every one of those lunges as you're kind of making your way through. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be painful.
Sam Kwan is in, so all 5 men have finished, and Sam Kwan, who came into this event in second place overall, earning 15 points.
Yeah, get some water.
It sounds like a good idea. Brooke Wells, the only athlete who has yet to finish. And there she is. So Brooke Wells started off with 2 straight fifth-place finishes and then bounced back. A second place in the CrossFit total. Then she won the handstand sprint, but now another fifth-place finish for her. As this event comes to an end, the beginning of the 2021 CrossFit Games season is just months away. The Open gets going with the announcement of 21.1 on February 18th. You can go to CrossFit.com to stay up to date with the latest on the 2021 season and how you can register to take part in the Worldwide Open. Right around the corner. So start training, everybody.
I'm not ready.
I'm tired of just watching these guys. I'm not ready to go out and actually start doing something like that right now.
It'd be a lot of fun to have the Open back in February. People like to start the year off with that at their gyms. Gives them something to train for. So Brooke Wells in stage 1 in second place to get herself here, and had probably, outside of Tiatui, the most consistent performance that we had seen from her ever.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
100%.
And we said this at, I think, the top of the broadcast this morning, is that she did get second. It's the best full competition she's ever put together in an environment that she's familiar with events that she should be good at, and it just changes when you get out here.
Totally.
She's no stranger to aromas. She was here in 2016, and she's no stranger to these events. She's done total, she's done handstand walks, she's done trail runs, but it's still never the same, no matter how familiar it can become. And this is the beauty of the test, is that you could check all your boxes, but Dave's got some hidden ones for you that you never even planned for. As simple as they may be, they have dramatic effect on the outcome of the events by the end of the day.
There is so much more of a mental element to this competition and this event than I think people really give it credit for. I mean, everyone talked about, the mental fortitude, and we talked earlier about the grit and everything. But that mental toughness, especially, with Dave Castro and his history with being with the SEALs and that sort of training, their training is, can you handle adversity over and over and over and over again, whether you're ready for it or not? And when you're an athlete that can only exist in routine where you can control all the boxes and be spectacular there and then step out of that box, it's a completely different beast. And if you don't have that ability, then it shows. And I think that's what's happening. Brooke is obviously a great athlete. We've seen her go through put out some amazing performances, both mentally and physically. But here it just seems like she's tripped up a couple times with those mental issues.
Katrin Davidsdottir won this event for the women, as Brooke Wells manages to crack a smile as she comes across the finish line. But let's send it to Nikki Brazier, who is with the women's winner of event 5.
Katrin, straight out of an ice bath, you were right into recovery after that incredible performance. I have to know, what was going through your mind the moment you realized exactly what the big plot twist was here?
Literally, the thing that went through my mind was, yes.
Really?
Let's go. Yeah.
Wow.
I was ready to go. It psyched me up.
It could have been so defeating.
I came in, I was like right there with Karen, like third or fourth, and I'm a good runner.